You ready, Jack? I was born ready.
This was a movie that made me very nervous going through Chinatown in London as a child. I think you can probably forgive my childish casual racism, but maybe not that of my parents for letting me watch a clearly terrifying movie that young. It was terrifying. Parts of John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China were absolutely bowel movement inducing. The swollen head fella who explodes, the thing that comes through the hole in the sewer wall, the hairy beast that is clung menacingly to the bottom of Jack Burton's truck at the end of the movie, and that horrible thing made from eyes. I'm old enough now to know that such things are silly and obviously only live in proper China. Do you think that eye thing could get a passport? Are you that stupid? Still, I swear I saw Lo Pan working in the Chinese restaurant near Miman. So, Big Trouble in Little China then, fondly remembered by those of us of a certain vintage, i.e. an old bastard vintage, that had a video game adaptation back in the days of the 8-bit microcomputers. Those being the Amstrad, the Commodore and the ZX Spectrum. But what is it doing in this video? Surely Big Trouble in Little China could not have been a flop. It's a cult classic. Well, it was a flop. It's brilliant, but sadly, it deserves its place in this series. As sad as that is. A great injustice befell upon this earth in 1986, seeing as Big Trouble in Little China was the 72nd most successful movie of the year of 1986, below the likes of Jojo Dancer Your Lift Is Calling, Howard the Duck, Young Blood, Armed and Dangerous, and even a re-release of Disney's rather dodgy these days Song of the South. So why is that fact an aberration against good taste? Well, let me tell you something, brother, as Hulk Hogan once said. Big Trouble in Little China is a fantasy action comedy that finds Kurt Russell's cocksure truck driver, Jack Burton, finding himself caught in a battle between good and evil. It is a battle between warriors, some with martial arts abilities, some with ancient magic, in a mystical underworld in the catacombs beneath San Francisco's Chinatown. Burton, along with his friend Wang Chi, Egg Shen and Eddie Lee, must prevent this sinister sorcerer Lo Pan from forcibly marrying the green-eyed Mao Yin and plunging the world into an eternal misrule underneath his big, scary fingernails. But don't worry, they do stop that, so you can rest easy. Also starring Kim Cattrall and James Hong, Big Trouble in Little China was directed by the legendary John Carpenter, who finally fulfilled a long-held desire to make a martial arts movie. Originally, the movie was conceived by its screenwriters Goldman and Weinstein as a western set in the 1880s, but when Carpenter joined, it was reworked by W.D. Richter to have a modern setting. A problem emerged when the very similar movie The Golden Child was slated to be out that year. Given the fact that starred the never more popular than at that particular point Eddie Murphy, John Carpenter decided to steal a march on his rival and get his movie out first. But ultimately, it was to no avail. The Golden Child made nearly 4 times as much money as Big Trouble in Little China. Is it 4 times as good? It is not. Big Trouble in Little China's piddly $11 million in ticket sales in North America was way below the $25 million that allegedly made up the movie's budget. So disillusioned was Carpenter after this with Hollywood movies that he returned to the independent scene, where he gave us, amongst other things, They Live. So that's not all bad, is it? Luckily, it did a lot better on home video and gained a lot of traction as one of the cult movies of the 1980s. Big Trouble in Little China sits at a 74% on Rotten Tomatoes, with the audience score of 82%, which, you know what, it is somewhere in between there in terms of quality. It's a really good movie. It's aged badly in places, but it's a good hour and a half's entertainment, and you should watch it if you haven't already. Electric Dreams released Big Trouble in Little China in 1987 on the 8-bit Big 3 Just like the movie that bears its name, you're charged with rescuing green-eyed maidens from the creepily nailed Mandarin Lo Pan. You do this as 3 of the movie's protagonists, those being Jack, Wang and Egg. Each has slightly different attacks. Jack will chin people with his fist. Wang Chi is a bit more flashier as he swings his toes about in people's chops, in an aggressive manner, mind. And Egg Chen will sit on a magic cloud and toss around electricity like it's going out of fashion. And it is. When was the last time you saw someone throwing around electricity? You must travel through Little China, through the sewers underneath it, then Lo Pan's headquarters, and finally his wedding chamber where he plans to wed Miao Yin. And if she breaks, his backup is Kim Cattrall. Not too bad. She seems very open-minded in Sex and the City, and she makes a noise like a dog in Porky's when she has sex, so could be worse. Plus, she has green eyes, and that seems to be Lo Pan's type, and also his key to immortality. There's only 4 missions then, but they do get increasingly trickier to defeat. It's good then that you can find weapons to fight your adversaries, both human and other. Jack gets an Uzi, Wang will make use of a sword on the ground, and Egg Shen's mystical bolts, well, they will get a nice little range and power boost. Only by working as a rotating team will you make your way to thwarting Lo Pan and his creepy plan. They can be switched at any time, and it's up to you to make sure that you feed one when they're looking a bit weaker than the others by switching characters and picking up that food. They will be going through a hell of a lot of a hustle and quite a bit of a bustle, so you want to make sure that they're fed. Big Trouble in Little China has clearly been influenced at least a little bit by Kung Fu Master, given the direction that we're forced to wander, and your moves are used via pressing fire and a direction. Martial artists will make up the bulk of the villainy, though further on, Lo Pan and his mystics will give you all kinds of bother. So make sure you put them to the fist, to the sword, and to the hand sparkle. Big Trouble in Little China, well, it's pretty limited. There's nothing but the trog and the repetitive smashing of faces with very few moves. And the only thing stopping it outstaying its welcome completely is its brevity. It's a short venture, completable in under 15 minutes if you get used to its idiosyncrasies. Hit detection isn't the best, but even if you get used to that and work out when to hit the fire button, your mind will be wandering by its second stage. It's very rinse and repeat after all. Graphically, it's fine, with the Commodore 64 version taking the Best in Show award, I would say, and the Amstrad definitely showing the Spectrum version's ribs in yet another phoned-in, slightly tarted up version of the Sinclair game's original code. So for me, it's not the best, and I found that I was having an instinctive reach for the off button pretty quickly. After all,
It's all in the reflexes.
CMVG gave it a 6 out of 10 in January 1987. They said that the game quickly becomes repetitive and you end up not really caring if you save the girls or not. Commodore User gave it a 3 out of 10 in May 1987. Big hype about Precious Little is a dull, insipid little game, a pale imitation of the Kung Fu beat-em-ups we've all come to hate. Have we all come to hate Kung Fu beat-em-ups? That's a bit presumptuous of you, Commodore User. This is Jack Burton in the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there. Just go and watch a movie instead, will you? Good. Like, subscribe, and thanks, bye.
You know what old Jack Burton always says at a time like this?
Who?
Jack Burton. Me.